Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so I will call this meeting to order. And everybody's here, which is great. I'm going to read our little meeting statement, but the only person who's on the, as far as I know, let's see, the only person in the attendees is Sarah. But so actually, I probably don't need to read this, right? Staff, am I okay not to read it?
You probably should read it just because this is recorded.
Ah, okay, of course. All right, so please be aware that this live council meeting is being recorded. Your personal information, including your image, voice, name, opinions, and any other personal information disclosed by you during the meeting is collected by the City of Roslyn under the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act for the purpose of your participation in public input. If you have any questions about the collection of your personal information, please contact Cynthia at roslyn.ca. If you do not wish your personal information to be collected, please do not join the live council meeting. So that seems to have happened. There's nobody here. In order to run the public input period smoothly, if you wish to comment on an agenda item, please raise your hand button. I will call on those who wish to speak by name. When your name is called, please unmute your microphone, state your name and comments. Thank you. Okay, and with that, we have public input, and unless Sarah wants to speak, we don't have anybody speaking. We don't have anybody here. So, and let me just make sure Sarah doesn't have her hand up. She does not. Okay, so now we'll take a motion to adopt the agenda. Can I see a mover? Janice moves it, Dirk seconds it, all in favor? Okay. And no amendments to it. We have no petitions and delegations, so we're moving.
Oh, sorry, Kathy.
Yeah.
I moved the minutes because there was that. Sorry, didn't write down what page it was, but it was about the item where we directed staff to review the business license fees.
Yes.
And at the end, it said to increase cost recovery. And I mean, I'm glad we recorded it because I don't remember saying that. That's why we wanted to do it. Just that it was a good idea to review them on a regular basis. So. I don't know if we want to amend that. Okay, so just delete that little bit. We're just going to review it. We're not going to make a decision ahead of time about what we're going to do. We might. Yeah, we don't. It's not so much about. Yeah, I don't recall having a discussion about cost recovery. It was just about making sure they were appropriate.
Okay, so anybody want to second that amendment? So yes, Andy does. Any discussion? Don't think so. All in favor? All good. So minutes as amended. Okay. Great. So now we're moving on to the minutes of the Heritage Commission of May 21st. So these are, we need a motion to adopt these. Somebody want to make that motion? Chris makes it, a seconder. Janice seconds. Any discussion on that? Okay, I have a couple of questions, and Chris, you may have the answers. Could the statement of significance on the mountain on Old Glory be written by the museum or Friends of the Roslyn Range, or do they have, is the Heritage Commission going to take that on themselves? You know?
Any statement of significance for anything could be written by anybody. It just has a bunch of guidelines that need to be followed.
Yeah, I'm just thinking those groups might have better info, perhaps, than
absolutely.
I mean, than HC. And then also, yeah, I think there was a question in the minutes about whether the OCP Advisory Committee is going to have heritage representation on it. And I think the answer to that was yes. And the last thing is, I don't know, did any of you see the nice write-up on Jackie's Lifetime Achievement Award that was in the Provincial Heritage BC newsletter? It was a reprint of the article that Sarah had done in the Telegraph. So that was nice. She got that provincial recognition. Okay, so we will adopt those minutes as presented. All in favor? Okay. Minutes of the Sustainability Commission, May 20th. Do I have a mover to adopt these? Mover, Dirk moves, a seconder.
Second it, so move.
Andy seconds. Any discussion there? The only thing I'll say there on those minutes is that if the SC wants anything in the council newsletter, they should just send it to me and let me know. You know, obviously, space is at a premium, but they should just do it. I always send it out after our second meeting, so that gives them a little time. You can let them know that. They just need to send something to me. Okay, and all in favor of adopting those minutes? All right, moving right along. Fees and charges amendment bylaw 2727. This is to read a first, second, and third time. We are so lucky. Who wants to move that? Mover, Janice moves, a seconder. Stuart seconds. Okay, discussion. Anybody have any conversation or comments, questions on this? Dirk. Take your mute. Yeah, there you go.
Just a couple things. The convenience fee, I didn't like that. It seems to me it's more convenient to do it online anyways. People coming in might need help doing it, and we already pay taxes for city staff to help with these kinds of things. It seems a little bit punitive, particularly given the demographic that might need the help with it. And then the page 19, are we going to be charging for every single inspection now, rather than like, didn't a certain number of inspections come with the building permit fee?
That is a question for staff. I don't know about that.
Building inspection fee. We collect a deposit on the building permit work, a security deposit, so that there's a, if it's required, if it's between a certain amount. And then once they've completed that work and they've got the occupancy permit, Public Works goes out to inspect it to make sure they haven't left a mess or there isn't some work that still needs to be done before we release the security deposit. So that's what that's about.
Okay, so it's not for everything. It's just when there's been that a modification.
Yeah, it's related to how to the building construction thresholds, right? Because, you know, if you just build a deck, I mean, there's probably no security deposit, right? It's more for when homes are built.
Okay. Staff, do you want to comment on the 0.25% fee, the convenience fee, the inconvenience fee?
Just to clarify that this isn't a 0.25% fee for people that are using the kiosk, because that's all done online. This would just be if people wanted to use credit card over the counter and we put through their credit card on our over the counter Interact machine. There's a 2% fee that will be charged. And as you know, we don't just collect taxes on Municipal, we also collect taxes on you know, various taxing authorities, which the 2%, which will get charged 2% on. So we could end up losing, you know, $10, $15, $20,000 if we don't charge a fee for taking credit cards over the counter. And we still just want to make it more, you know, make it more advantageous to do those things online rather than just say, oh, I can just do it over the counter.
But somebody needing help could come to the kiosk, get help, not have to pay that 0.25%.
Right, they would just get charged the 1.75% fee that gets charged by the service provider that gets tacked onto their payment.
Okay, that makes more sense to me.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on that one?
Or we don't have to take, you know, credit cards over the counter at all. It was just suggested by as something that we could do. So I mean, you could just, you know, keep with the same setup, you know, nothing over the counter, just online as well.
I think it's a convenience to our customers to offer that, right? To offer a credit card if somebody wants to. I have no idea how many people will want to do it that way. Do you have any? Well, we didn't do it before, so we don't know. You don't know either, right?
Well, the uptake on the online is quite significant, right? Last year it's 500 transactions, and I forget how much money I said there was, what, 200,000 or something like that?
Okay.
So that's quite significant. You wouldn't want all of that migrating to the front counter if you're not going to charge any fee, right? Because that's a lot of people.
Yeah, well, my guess is the people who are doing it online aren't going to want to come to the counter anyway, right? Because they're comfortable doing it from home.
Depends whether you charge a fee or not.
Yeah.
You know, people want to collect those air miles, right? That's the big thing. And so they, you know, if you're not going to charge any fee for doing it over the counter, they'll know that they can you know, max out their return by doing it over the counter, so they won't go online unless, you know, they are in a pinch. You have to make the online still look more attractive than coming in.
Okay. Okay, any other comments on this? Or we'll call the question on first, second, and third reading. All in favor? Okay, and now we have a motion for adoption of the same. Can I have a mover? Somebody? Okay, Andy moves, Janice seconds, and I don't think we need any further discussion here, but if we do, now's the time. If not, all in favor. Okay, Stuart, I can't see you voting, but I'm assuming you are. Or Stuart, are you frozen? Stuart looks frozen.
I don't know. I'm putting my hand up.
Oh, no, we haven't been able to see that. You're
Can
frozen.
you-
But that's okay.
Oh,
Okay. Okay, so next up, we have a request for proposal. This is a solid waste collection disposal services review, and the motion is that we award the contract to Alpine Group as per the general terms and conditions outlined in their request for proposals. We can have this motion or another motion. Somebody want to make a motion of some sort? Janice,
I'll make this one. I'll make the
Okay.
move to accept.
make it as it is. Okay, and a seconder for that?
I'll second that
Okay, and
for discussion.
okay, and now we've got discussion. Janice, start us off.
Sure. I realize it's more money than we've certainly been paying, but it turns out that maybe what we've been paying hasn't been adjusted since 2015, and we may have been getting a really good deal on our service. There's all sorts of ways to break it down. What I found most interesting is that the cost per bag, as staff so generously pointed out, to have it picked up at your front door is going to, or at, you know, a roadside is going to be $4.34 a bag, and it would cost you $4 if you drove it down and dropped it off yourself. So with all the other numbers that we've looked at and juggled around, just that one alone does make it appear that the contract, the amount that they're asking for, is reasonable. Yeah, and I think that also the contract has the clause in it that if there's a significant change to the service, which of course there will be when organics start getting picked up, that the person who is applying, who put in the RFP, will be open to negotiating that at that time, which certainly means that we'll be able to, you would expect that the number of bags per unit would go down, garbage bags per unit would go down when organics go up. So that's all I got to say.
Okay, Andy, you were the seconder?
Yeah, yes, it's true that we're going to have likely, once the curbside organic pickup is installed, we are going to have reduced tonnage as well going down the hill. So that should help to reduce the overall cost to the service. Who knows what costs are incurred when we do have the curbside pickup initiated, though, and I wonder, you know, that change. So it wanted to make sure that there's flexibility in the contract so that we're in a position to come back to the contractor to renegotiate. I was a little concerned that we're tying ourselves in for that whole 5-year period, but I understand that there may have not been interest in anything less than that. And of course, I'm also disappointed that we only had one interested party even tender for it. So,
Well, there's a question for staff. Was a shorter term discussed with Alpine at all, like maybe a 1 year or 3 year?
Well, we originally, at the beginning, we discussed the extension for 6 months and then the 1 year on top of that, but you were getting into these numbers anyway. So, you know, like for year 1 and year 2, it looks like it's remaining the same. And then year 3, there's a jump, year 4, there's a jump, year 5, there's a jump. So you're paying for length of service basically on the contract, just like we would for like a QP contract agreement or any other type of longer term agreement to secure pricing. And again, these are going to be locked in numbers if we do this for 5 years, unless we sit down and do amendments, which we would be able to do. There's provisions for contract termination in the sample contract that was attached to the RFP that talks about 6 months notice. So we have 6 months if we wanted to, or we can mutually agree to remove the contract. Basically, a lot of this stuff comes down to the organics wild card on this activity. And to be honest with you, in the greater trail area, I think that the Alpine is probably going to be a big player in that aspect. And so integrating organics diversion with Alpine and how regional district does solid waste management at the landfill, and maybe looking at trying to do some costing of a more regional approach to solid waste collection between different municipalities as a service contract, potentially through the regional district, which may or may not go through Alpine as well, potentially, who knows? That's where we can maybe possibly look at seeing some longer term savings in the future.
Okay, thanks. Stuart?
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, my primary concern is the lack of flexibility in the system that we have designed around people that produce one big bag of garbage per week, and that's not my reality, and it's not the reality of the people that I know. Quite a few people I know produce, basically a shopping bag of garbage per week, and they just throw that in city garbage bins. And I think the system we're designing is going to encourage that. I'd like to see something that was more flexible about people that produce less garbage and didn't want to spend a month trying to accumulate a full garbage bag. I think that's disappointing that we don't have those options. And I'd also, just from a user experience, I'd love to have something where you could actually put it in some sort of receptacle at your convenience, rather than being tied to putting garbage out on a Wednesday morning and attracting the bears and the dogs on that one time every day. I'd like to see something different. Maybe that's not practical. I don't think the system we have is, it seems still seems reasonable value. I don't really have any problem with it. I just, I'd like to see a better system.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. And I'm a little concerned about the one large bag, people hoarding their garbage, then being more attractant for bears and all the rest of it. So I wasn't particularly pleased with the way that went. I also wasn't pleased with the way the price jumped. It may be good value. Maybe we had a great deal going, but it's like a landlord. You should have your deal where you increase your rent gradually. Don't just whack somebody with a big increase, because we're definitely gonna hear about it. I don't know. So we have a motion on the table to accept this as is. We can, accept it as is and move on, or we can defeat it and have some other suggestions. Dirk, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think the doubling in the bag fee, it's more than doubling, because like Stu said, the small bag option is gone from that. A number of my neighbors put out a small bag every couple of weeks, and now they're either holding it for 4 weeks, or it's just not a sustainable thing. So we're going to have more bear encounters on porches and such. If at any time the contractor of Alpine had been losing money on the $1.50 sticker, I've done it as a contractor. I'm sure they could have come to the city and said, hey, costs have gone up and we're losing money on this. Can we tweak it? But to double it is out of line, I think. And it's only $1.50 a week maybe, but it adds up. And on the whole community, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, and the fact that the regional district has not put their tipping fees up is something too. Although, Andy, it sounds like they might be doing that in the fall. They just delayed it. They didn't.
Yeah, certainly the staff report came out earlier in the year that it's a necessity to increase it to the $120 a ton. So another $10 from 110. And the idea was to have done that as Brian said in his email, as of May 1st. So it was only postponed because of the COVID crisis, and people were just concerned about another hit of tax at an untimely situation. So yeah, at some point it's going to go up to the 120.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I did have the question for staff is that there has to be a point where going contract becomes too expensive. There would be savings doing it in-house with, I don't know, sharing with Warfield, a truck or something. There has to be that crossover. Do we know where that is? I mean, it's not rocket science. It doesn't seem like something we couldn't figure out.
I don't know that we've ever looked at it. Staff, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, our hands up for a conversation there. So basically is that we looked at a whole bunch of different options in regards to our mini solid waste review that we did over the past 6 months. And the direction was to maintain the service as is. So with that direction from council, we have not gone and looked at any other costing options because the direction of council was to continue with the current service as is, which is what is presented in the staff report, which is what was presented in the RFP that took a while to draft because this is a unique service to say the least. It took some time to actually put what we do on a piece of paper and make it actually sound reasonable. So there is no answer to that question at this time.
Okay, Janice, you had your hand up.
I did, thank you. I was just going to ask Brian if staff had had any conversation with Alpine about continuing to have two different tags, a small bag tag and a large bag tag. You know, that's still pay as you throw. I know that there's more cost reduction because you have to make two different types of tags, but it might alleviate some of the concern about the 75-cent tags suddenly going to $3 and only having one size.
Yeah, well, they called us before the submission ended, like the date ended for closing date, and advised that this is something they were going to be doing. And I said, well, I don't think that might ever make any sense, but it's going to be a controversial issue to say the least. But there, I was like, well, if that's what your proposal is, I mean, that's what you got to do in regards to administration of the service and whatnot. So unless we're going to take over bagging and tagging of the system and the pay as you throw aspect of things, this is kind of the number that we are right now dealing with.
Well, couldn't we send it back to them and say we like the contract with the exception of we don't like not having two options of bags, and maybe there could still be a, you know, they could raise the price on the bags a little bit but still have two. So there's the price is going.
We can do whatever council like to do. Just as a note that other municipalities in the area, there's one bag charge for pretty much everything. And there's not a two bag system that I know of in the area that goes through this. So for example, in Fruitvale, we have one bag, you fill it up, it's containable, you put it in storage, you put it in your garage. When you want to use it, you put it in the garbage, put it out on the Wednesday, they take it up. If you don't have enough garbage, you feel you want to wait until the next week and you can do that, knowing about scheduling your life, then you're able to do it at that time as well. So the two bag system, I do see that it is administratively, you know, cost increasing. No kidding on that aspect of things, but we can definitely go back to Alpine on anything that council wishes if they so choose to go that direction.
Yeah, I mean, we have sort of unique situations here. We have a lot of bear issues. We have, you know, we have a population that's sort of used to this. It's sort of like it's a huge increase, I think, in cost to people. And it also sort of goes against what we're trying to do, which is reduce garbage, you know. So, okay, Stuart has his hand up. Oh, so does Chris. Let me go to Chris first because he hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll go to Stu.
Thanks. Brian, do we have an opportunity to negotiate this, or is this basically what they're telling us the fee is?
Well, we did a request for proposal to get pricing. They came back with it. The reason that we did it now instead of doing it like 3 days before the contract ended was that if something came back out of whack, that we had potential opportunity to go back and look at renegotiating. So in the RFP, obviously it says that there was going to be discussed at June 1st council meeting, with negotiations and award of a contract potentially by middle of June. So if the direction is from council that staff to go back and try to renegotiate a two bags price system on that, then you know, I'll do the best that I can do to go talk to them, and we get one price still, and that's it. We can't really deny this and then go back out to tender because that's a thing called bid shopping, which is illegal. So we're kind of in a problematic state right now where we have, it's not so much, I think, the service cost for the route, right? Because that's going up 80 cents, which is not a big deal, but it's definitely the the bag, the pricing of the bag, and how that relates to tipping fees. And again, if we now know that the tipping fee is not being increased in May as per regional district guidance, then maybe that's a conversation that we can have to say, here's a rationale why we want to review the bag charge.
Yeah, it's not unusual for us to get an RFP and go back and have a little bit more negotiation to, you know, sharpen the pencils and whatnot. Okay, Stuart, and then Andy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think their proposal is unreasonable. It's totally workable as it is, but I just think as is, we should anticipate costs of having our municipal garbage receptacles filled up with garbage on a much more regular basis. I mean, that's the reality.
Mm-hmm. We already get a lot of complaints about the price of the bag tags. Andy. You're muted. You're muted. Andy, you're muted. Andy, there we go.
Sorry, too many buttons. So we have a motion currently, and we need to vote on it before we can potentially put any other motion on the floor. I would like to forward it. I would like to promote a second motion. So I don't know if we want to vote on this one first.
We're going to vote on this as soon as we're finished discussing it, and then if it's defeated, we can have another motion.
Okay.
Okay. So anybody else want to comment on the motion as it stands? Dirk.
Was it just, is it possible that the $3 bag thing was the start of a negotiation in terms of, did they anticipate negotiating the price on it? And that was, I don't know if that's normal.
Well, we don't know. We'll find out when Brian goes back and negotiates whether it was the starting point or the ending point, if we decide to do that. Okay, so I see no other hands, little blue hands up there. I'm going to call the question. Take this contract as it is. Vote in favor. Want to make some changes to it? Defeat it. All in favor of it? Okay, and okay, Stuart and Janice are in favor of it. Opposed? Okay, so that's defeated. So now someone make a new motion. Chris?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the contract as it stands with the changes to the tipping fees, but to make a one bag, and this is going to be long. Unfortunately, we'll make it smaller, I'm sure. But have one bag, medium size, for $2.
Okay, one bag. Okay, one bag, medium size for $2 is your motion. You take the contract as is, with the exception of the bag fee being $2 instead of $3. Is that right? Okay. And
Yep.
do you care what
One
size
bag.
that bag is? Do you want to let them decide what size the bag is?
Let's decide what size the bag is.
Let them, or you want to?
Let's make them decide. Medium is kind of in the middle of small and large, so let's let them decide what's the best bag to use.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Seconder, Janet seconds it. Okay, so Chris, do you have anything else to say about it?
No. Other than I am disappointed with the fact that we're getting held over a barrel here.
Yeah. Janice is the seconder. I'm going to let you speak and then going to staff.
Yeah, no, it's that might work because you know, people, it's a jump up from 75 cents for a bag, but it's for a medium bag, so the people who usually just use a small bag will get 2 or 3 weeks out of the medium bag. People who create a lot of garbage, they're going to need 2 medium bags, and so they're going to pay more, which is the point of having a pay-as-you-throw program.
Mm-hmm. Okay, staff.
Yeah, we just want to confirm the motion because we're all lost over here, actually. So you were talking about the contract as is, except reducing the bag from a large bag from $3 to make it a medium bag for $2. Is that what that is, or that's an additional option that we still would have 2-bag system?
No, I think
That's right. No, one bag,
one bag.
medium for $2. Eliminate the small, eliminate the large.
Okay. Staff, you still have your hand up. You have further
Yeah,
comments?
it's really hard to regulate the size of a bag. I mean, this is where the problem's gonna be, right? We know what a large bag is. So unless we get a specific dimension of what the medium bag is, I would like to kind of get that information so we can go back to council or go back to Alpine and have that conversation with them. And I think we're gonna run the same practice now. You're gonna be having someone that uses a large bag that is a little bit more than a medium, but not too much for two mediums, is gonna be paying $4 instead of $3. So we've kind of circumvented the issue to another level, and it doesn't really it really isn't solving a problem that we're having, right? It's actually probably looking at creating another problem, but any direction council gives, we can go and look at.
Okay, well, in their contract, they put the dimensions of the bag. We can figure out a dimension for a medium bag, and they exist, right? Okay, Stuart and then Janice.
But everything's measured by gallons and liters.
Yeah, you're right. I'm looking at it right now too.
Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting idea. If it was actually implementable, I think it's a great solution. My concern is that the people that are out there collecting the garbage are going to be fairly challenged to police bag size, and what happens when somebody puts a slightly larger than regulation bag out there. They're not buying them from the city, they're just putting a sticker on them. It's pretty hard to get out there and pull out a tape measure and work out exactly what the dimensions of a bag are, and when you're in compliance. If I was Alpine, I'd be wondering where they're just setting themselves up for, a whole lot of non-compliance, people just putting in their regular garbage bag size and, probably getting away with it. And my pedantic feedback is that if we are going to define any bag sizes, I'd like to see it in metric units and also in an actual standard garbage bag sizes. I don't know where you get a 28 by 36 bag. I didn't find any online, and I don't like it when we use imperial units for these things. Garbage bags, in my understanding, come in volume and they should be in metric.
Okay,
That's
Janet.
all I've got.
Well, I was just going to ask, I was actually going to ask Brian, because I know he lives in Fruitvale. My understanding is that some of our surrounding communities don't actually sell stickers for their pay-as-you-go or pay-as-you-throw program. They actually sell the bags. So you get the bag, and so that's what defines the size of the bag.
And I mean, it's, for an example, in Montrose, for sure, we ended up buying like 20,000 bags because we got a good deal on it way back when, and then we were eventually raising prices on that way back when, with the idea that it's way more economical and environmentally friendly to put stickers on bags rather than to give someone else another bag, and the cost of that is way less. And that way we were able to. We were looking at trying to do that time was to keep the cost down. So it was all about keeping costs down. For Fruitvale, for example, same thing. They have the Village Fruitvale's bag on it. So if you don't have that bag outside with the branding of Fruitvale, Village of Fruitvale on it, then they don't pick it up when it comes into garbage. And then they're also internal staffing, like they're doing it through QP staff, same as Montrose. And then Trail is a little bit different, and Warpdale is a little bit different. So there's definitely options to look at regional cooperation on some stuff. I'm sure we could probably look at trying to figure out what it would cost to do it in-house. It's just additional time and effort and staff resources, but it comes down to the total cost of the service. And to be honest with you, how much that relates to the tipping fee at the regional district. And so we go back to the point of this contract is, yes, it is on all purposes, you're looking at almost like a 50 or 60% increase year over year from what was previously done, but on the cost of dropping off a bag of garbage at the landfill for $4 plus travel time, you're basically paying an extra 34 cents to get that picked up at your property. So that's why the recommendation was the way that it was, and I think that it's still a fairly decent proposal, even though we're talking about the bag issue.
Yeah, the option may not be to take it down to Trail. It may be to dump it off Cascade or stick it in the city garbage bins downtown. Dirk, you had your hand up.
I did. I'm not particularly keen on having the second motion be a negotiation on the price cost. My preference would be to give it to Brian and negotiate on sticker cost, size of the bag, and then have it depend on the quality of that negotiation is the term of the contract. So if they are not willing to negotiate, then it's 1 year. We've got some big changes coming anyways. If the deal is better, then we say, oh, sure, 3 years or 5 years or something, or tie it to the cost of tipping. You know, we do CPI or cost plus on a lot of things.
Okay, so we could defeat this motion and you could put forward another motion, which would be that direction, you know, direction to just go back and renegotiate these things. I mean, I think we've got some staff may want some more direction than that. But let's see where we go. Stuart, were you waving madly because you wanted to speak, or were you saying goodbye to Elise?
I was just saying hello to Elise.
Ah, okay, wasn't sure. Okay, so now Dirk has put forward another idea, which would be, rather than be specific as Chris's motion is to just sort of turn this back over to Brian with some more direction to negotiate. So if we defeat this, we can have a third motion to try and move this issue along. So that's where we are. Brian, do you want to say anything to that before we go forward?
We were just talking offline about other options and stuff like that. So, yeah, you know, I think if you give that direction back to staff, we can go back and talk to Alpine about taking a look at that. If we're between a rock and a hard place, the suggestion would be, since pricing is guaranteed for the first 2 years of the contract instead of the first year of the contract, I would suggest that we would probably look at doing a 2-year deal instead of a 1-year deal with the potential termination, just because the pricing is guaranteed for that second year the same price as the first year, which gives us another little bit of time in order to get organics diversion working and going up, because it's still going to be a significant amount of time, I think, before that even sees the light of day, unfortunately. I know I was working on it way back when, in 2006, 2007. So it's 2020, and we might have something in place by 2023, 2024 at the earliest, I would think. But we can definitely go back and negotiate on that particular clause of the contract.
Yeah, that sounds good. Janice.
My only concern about, and well, I trust Brian implicitly to go and negotiate these things for us and do a great job. My only concern is that really, if Alpine is going to be the only person who ever answers in the foreseeable future these RFPs, unless we choose to bring this in-house, and we don't even know what the cost of that would be. It could be prohibitive. I'd like to remain on good terms with Alpine because we don't have any options other than them right now.
Well, that's true, but these are big boys, right? I mean, these are people who understand contracts are to be negotiated. I don't think their feelings are going to be hurt, right? If Brian comes back and just expresses the fact that we're concerned about a couple of these things. So I appreciate your sentiments, but I don't think it's going to be a big issue, actually. Okay, so let's call the question on Chris's motion. He gets points for creativity, but we may have a better solution. So in favor of Chris's motion for the medium bags. Okay, and opposed. Oh, Janice is in favor. Okay, all right. Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you. Okay, and opposed to that motion. Okay. All right. So that motion's defeated. So now we have an opportunity for another motion. Dirk, would you like to make it?
Yeah, I think the gist is out there, but just that we give it to staff to negotiate, see if we can keep the small bag in there, keep the prices lower, and then have the term dependent on the caliber of the renegotiation.
Okay, Brian, are you clear with that motion as marching orders for you?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to go back and negotiate, and then another report will come forth again to council for ratification. So yeah, it's fine.
Okay, I think that's great. Anybody have other, we need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, Andy seconds, good. Any other discussion there? Call the question, all in favor? Okay, everyone's good, thank you. All right.
Can I also ask,
yeah.
Kathy, could I also ask that that we circulate the ideas with council on this, because it seems like there's not a consensus on exactly what it is we're looking for. So it'd be good before it goes back to Alpine that we just have that discussion as a group.
You mean to give further direction to Brian about what he's negotiating?
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose, although we should probably, you're saying you want time to think about it as opposed to.
Well,
really the time to give direction.
No, and I realize that we've been around talking about this for some time now, and you know, there was also discussion about a biweekly pickup. That was another issue that kind of fell by the wayside. So I just wanted to make sure that we're, you know, committing, because this is potentially a long-term contract, that we're committing with the best situation possible.
Right. Well, we did have that discussion earlier after the staff report
Yeah.
before, and we kind of, unfortunately, we sort of put that aside for now, with the understanding that once we got to the organic collection, then we would talk about whether changing to the you know, periodicity of the pickup. So I think we already did kind of come to a consensus on
Yeah,
that.
bi-weekly, yes, I remember that. But again, we're looking at a 5-year contract, so.
Well,
and
maybe we aren't, though. Maybe we aren't. I mean, this is
Right.
part of the negotiation that Brian has, that we can look at this and maybe it's just a 2-year contract, and that gives us more flexibility. I think Brian understands that we're looking for flexibility. We're also looking for a bit better pricing, especially, you know, on the bag part.
On the bag
And
part. Yeah,
maybe
okay.
keeping some flexibility in bag size if possible. Stuart, you had your hand up. Oh, you're frozen again.
Yeah, I mean, I just think am I okay?
Yeah.
Am I live again? Yes, I mean, I think we're moving in a direction. I mean, many of us are already there. I'm already diverting all my organics. Most people I know already are. And presumably we're going to get to a situation soon where everybody has that opportunity to divert their organics, and we're all going to be producing less garbage. So I just think we have to have a system that, you know, accounts for that. And the idea that we're all just filling up piles of garbage every week is just not, well, it's not the right thing to do, and it's not what people actually need. So we should design it into the contract now and be ready to continue with it when everybody can do it.
I like that. Forward.
That's what I got to say.
Very good. Okay, I'm going to call the question on this. All in favor of getting Brian to go back to the drawing table? There we go. And opposed to that? Anybody opposed? Nobody opposed. Okay, thank you. Or actually, I think we already voted on that, didn't we? Sorry, we voted twice. That's how enthusiastic we are about it. Okay, so now we're going to Sim's proposal. They wanted us to waive rent so they could give it to the food bank, and staff would like further direction. So does someone have a motion about Sims? Stuart?
I got a motion.
Yeah.
I'd like to deny their request.
Okay.
You know, it's not their money.
Okay, and it's been seconded by Andy. Okay,
Yeah.
Stuart, you want to speak to it a little bit more?
Yeah, they're suggesting we should give our money. You know, it's like they're being generous for somebody else's money. It seems ridiculous.
Yep. Okay, Andy?
Same. It's, you know, Alma pointed out in her report that there's going to be substantial costs with remediating this property. And yeah, as taxpayers, we've contributed to the food bank. We can make that choice as a council to do more. But yeah, I don't think we should be doing it in this circumstance.
Okay, any other comments on this? We have Dirk?
I think my only comment was that, I mean, they might be in a position to negotiate on something different, in that they have the machines and the capacity to remove some of the structures that's going to cost us more money to remove later. So I'd be open to negotiating that. Like if they take some of the buildings with them, that could save us more in the long run. Doesn't cost them very much.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know what condition they're supposed to leave that land. What is the detail of their lease there, staff?
Same as.
Yeah, but
It's same as, but we've done some environmental monitoring on that, right? So we have a standard minimum that is now in place. And I believe Darren can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the building is ours. It was there. So getting them to take down our structure is kind of, it's not usually how that works. It's our responsibility, unfortunately.
Yeah, but if we waive the rent, we give them free rent if they take the building down. I think that's what Dirk's going after. We could negotiate on that. Not
they could
on-
donate it.
I don't think-
They
I
can
don't
donate
think
that
the
time.
pencil flies on that one, but well, we can suggest anything council would like to put forward.
Okay, so right now we have a motion to deny their request. And you know, I mean, I have to say, it's a lovely offer. It's very community-minded and all of that. But honestly, the food bank did get $25,000 from CBT. And so I, you know, there might be another organization that needs that money more that council may decide that we want to spend taxpayer money on rather than this. So, okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of denying this request? Hands up. Anybody in favor of giving it? Nobody. Okay. So thank them, but no. Okay, so we are on updated task list. Anybody have questions or comments on the task list? I see no little blue hands. I like the little blue hands. So now we have request arising from correspondence. We have the District of Saanich resolution regarding Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy Change. And the question is, do we want to join this effort or do we not? So is there a motion there? Okay, seeing, oh, Andy. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. You're still muted. There we go.
Going between hands and mute. So anyways, yeah, no, I make the motion that we do join this organization.
Okay.
FCM came out today to, yep, I'll see if there's a seconder first.
Okay, Dirk seconds. Okay, Andy, go ahead.
So FCM came out today with some information about this organization, and it sounds like that there's unification in numbers, as we have Climate Caucus has done such an awesome job at rallying the troops when it comes to municipal recognition and support. When we align together, I think this is another opportunity. Now you're the mayor, so maybe you're in a position to talk about it and what you think its value would be. I'd be interested in knowing that.
Yeah, well, I don't know what the value would be. I mean, I looked at it and I feel like a lot of what we're doing already with the 100% renewable kind of aligns with it. So I didn't necessarily see it as extra work, right? Okay, Dirk seconded. So Dirk, you have some comments?
No, I think I saw Gregor Robertson. Was it Gregor Robertson started this? I saw him talk about it at the Renewable Cities. Sounded impressive in terms of a pretty heavy lobbying group, and the fact that we're aligned with it already seems reasonable just to do it.
Okay, so I think, let me get to that place in the agenda. I don't know if we have to pass the motion. Oh, this is a tiny screen. Okay, so we would just pass the same motion that Saanich did, only substitute Roslyn for Saanich. I think that would be it. So it's on page 74 of our 78-page packet. Okay. So all in favor of that? And opposed? Anybody opposed? Stuart's opposed. Okay. Okay.
No,
so,
I didn't oppose.
What?
No, I wasn't opposing. I was just slow.
Oh, you're slow. Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you. You know, that's good to say because there is this little time lag in here that gets it. Okay. Okay. So we are moving into, oh, look at this. It's 7:15. Ha ha. We may be out in an hour. We are moving to our members reports. So Stuart, I'll start with you.
I don't have anything to report.
Okay. Chris.
Hold on, let me open it. Go to Janice.
Okay, Janice.
How did that work? Okay. I thought ahead of time and printed mine out, so I didn't have to give it my screen.
Good girl.
I attended a Municipal Insurance Association of BC webinar because Brian recommended it. It was a bit dry, but interesting. And it was all about options available to communities to assist them in their businesses in the stage 1 to 4 of opening, the reopening and relaxation of the state of health emergency situation due to COVID. That's actually where, when we were talking about patio opportunities, that's where I had heard about the license of occupation information. So yeah, it was a pretty dry hour and a half, but there was some really good information in it. I attended 2 rec task force meetings. They're working away. They're in the process of developing a report on the state of the TRP issue as it pertains to Rawson residents and what options might be available to the city of Rawson to address the situation going forward. And then what else did I do? I went to a, trying to flip the page, paper sucks. There we go. Attended a primary physician's clinic call. They're continuing to collect information to determine the viability of their plan. And there are similar emerging plans in neighboring communities, which may or may not create some economies of scale for that, for those parties involved. I also attended a Midtown transition meeting to discuss additional energy efficiencies that might be appropriate or available to the project that is proposed, and where any additional grant or other funding for those efficiencies might come from. That's it.
Okay, Chris, are you ready?
Yep. All right, so May 21st, Heritage Commission meeting. We submitted and discussed the top priorities for the action items under the Heritage Management Plan. And we kind of determined that the top priorities, we got 4 out of 5 nailed, but the major one was the coordination of with the museum and the RCAC and Tourism Rossland in the concentrated effort to bring the leaders of all the pertinent organizations together for brainstorming on coordinating precious volunteer efforts. We're just getting so lean in a lot of that. And also, resignation of Larry Dole was a big topic of conversation. Larry's been a pillar in the success of many organizations in the scope of our city. And I just want to personally thank him for our time with us. And I hope he continues to work on shaping this community. Larry's experiences and his thoughtfulness in his efforts are both much appreciated and well received. May 22nd, attended the business virtual roundtable as guest speaker. Spoke to having a few businesses in our community in different stages of recovery and the effects of COVID on our business development models, with a specific focus on pivoting our business into the new ways. So it was a very interesting conversation. I attended the Lower Columbia Affordable Housing Society Midtown Development Meeting. Talked about energy modeling and got an update from Rocky Point Engineering. Some latest cost estimates, and then some responses to some of the questions that the council had regarding the construction manager selection and some of the nuances around it. And that was it for me. Thanks.
Okay, Dirk.
I just attended to the Sustainability Commission and the Energy Task Force, and the minutes are there for the SC. The only thing that really kind of stuck out is they had a really great thought about working with the rec group to facilitate online learning webinars like composting or, I don't know, other kind of energy efficiency, sustainability commission type things as a way for rec to have revenues, but also SC to stay active and people to keep learning. The plastics group has bought a sea can now, so kind of moving forward with some of that. And then a thought from the Energy Task Force too was, the first one was that the city should probably have a sustainability page, so some place where people can access sustainability information in town, either grants or projects or something. And then in line with that, they're looking at the benchmarking study, a quick and dirty kind of way to assess the value of energy upgrades or lack thereof in homes in Rossland, as a nice and easy way that people can quickly look to see, hey, so-and-so's house costs them so much and they have a heat pump or instant hot water or something, that some kind of way to gauge it. So trying to do more on the benchmarking. And then the thought that each councillor should have their house benchmarked. I'm going for the very bottom of the benchmark. That's it for me. Oh, and then do you want me to bring the motion?
Yeah, we'll do that in a second. But I have a question for you on the rec and the SC. Are they talking to Christy about it?
I don't know that they are. I think it was just an idea. We talked about doing online learning from have solar, carrying on with the energy talks that Kelly had done, but also opportunities to do composting and that kind of thing. Try to get people enthused and educated on it.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a good idea, but it would definitely need to be coordinated, with Christy on that. And the other thing about the benchmarking and everything, are they talking about having that kind of information available on on the SC with a Visions to Action portion of the website, the city's website?
I think some are accessible so that you could pop on and enter the age of your house, the square footage of your house, and then your utility bills and get an idea where you fit and look for differences. Thinking
So
of,
I have no idea if there's a program out there that does that kind of thing, a tool, you know, it's sort of an app or something that does that, but otherwise, I don't know. That.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, pretty cool idea. Yes, you can talk about the motion.
Oh, okay. Can I bring that motion forward? Do I have to read it? Do I have to find it? I have to find
Sure,
it.
you gotta find it. You gotta find it.
Yeah. That we bring forward do you want me to read the whole thing? Or everybody's already read it. The greening.
Well, there's 3 different ones, right? So you could, why don't you just do one at a time?
All right, sure. The greening of City of Rosslyn Fleet. Council directs staff to create a municipal fleet renewal policy, which would include specific language regarding the greening of the Rosslyn fleet. So feasibility of alternative fuel, hybrid or EV, when any vehicle is being replaced or added to the fleet.
Okay. So that's the first motion that's in the packet. I actually can't get it centered on my thing. I've only got half of it for some reason. So do we have a seconder? Andy will second. Okay, so any discussion on this? Dirk, you want to talk about it?
No, I just think we need to start making these changes now. There's no sense kicking it down the road because we've been doing that for a long time.
Okay.
Not the city, generally.
Right. Andy, you have something to add to it?
Just that the technology has changed so much in the last few years and will continue to evolve. And I think that there was a big disparity in that capital cost of equipment until recently. And now with the savings in fuel and obviously a reduction of our GHGs, they're a lot more in line from a budgetary item. And in the next couple of years, there'll be a myriad of options available. But I think it's just important. I'm not saying that we have to make choices today. I think that we just want to be in a position to be progressive and leaning in that direction as quick as possible.
Okay.
And I also had made the effort to make sure that we were looking at all our small gas-powered engine tools. That change is happening already, and actually Stu can speak to that because they have invested in battery-operated equipment for KCTS. So
yeah, I think that one.
The options are now there.
Yeah, I think that one's actually in a different motion. You know what? I cannot actually read this thing for some reason. So Stuart, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to know what the difference is between what this would say and what's already being done. I presume, given the many sort of directives we have in our various policies, that staff do consider these things. I mean, notwithstanding, in some fields, I drive a truck and I use tools, and in some fields, like, you can buy an electric chainsaw that for most uses is functionally superior than the gas alternatives for many uses, and that makes sense. We should make those purchases. But for example, if I was buying a truck right now and I see the city's fleet is mostly trucks, there just isn't those practical choices. I presume staff are assessing them when they make those purchases, and if there were reasonable alternatives, I'm sure they would do it. I wonder what they're not doing now that this is going to change.
I think the intent was to just make it more, bring it more front and center that we're looking for alternative fuels. And I don't think we've actually had that specific direction to staff before. So I think that's probably part of it.
It just seems like it's come up when we've made purchases in the past. We've given that feedback to staff. We're like, we're buying another truck, and our disappointment is clear. We'd love if staff bought, started replacing our F-150s or our big Ram trucks with a reasonable electric alternative. And, to be frank, I'd like the same thing. I'd love to be able to go out there and replace my big gas guzzling truck with a reasonable electronic alternative, but I mean, they're just, you know, they're not going to drive around with a Prius with a roof rack with all their tools and equipment on the top. It's just not going to happen.
Why not? This is great. I love my Prius. No, you're absolutely right. But this is just, I think the intent is to set this up for the future because vehicles are changing fairly rapidly. And so it's moving that direction. Janice and then Chris.
I was just going to ask if we could include in there, I know we've talked about EVs and we've talked about hybrids or alternative fuels, but can we just also put in there options, rather than just call them green alternatives, options that reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, because that's really our goal. And in the interim, until there are electric vehicles that are suitable for all the work that public work does, you know, we may have to look at just reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by using more efficient vehicles, maybe moving to some of the renewable natural gas type options, and our ability with infrastructure to actually charge a fleet full of EV vehicles might not be there yet either. So I know we'll get there. But, and we do need to take the first step to take the 20th step for sure. But I guess I just don't want to tie public works hands when they're going out looking for new vehicles. I think if we formalize this as direction that we want to make sure we're constantly looking to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, then I support that intent strongly.
Yeah, well, it does say feasibility of alternative fuel, but it could add something in there somewhere about, you know, with the intent to reduce, you know, greenhouse gases, which could end up being a more modern truck, even if it's a gas truck or something else at this point. But the point is to get away from the fossil fuel vehicle. So do you want to make an amendment, suggest an amendment, put some other language in that? We're on the first motion.
Let me have a peek at it. Yeah, if we just amended at the end for the purpose of reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
Okay, so mover and seconder, are you okay if that language gets added?
There.
Okay, I think that's good. All right, anything else on this one, or I'll just call the question?
Just
Yeah,
Sorry, Chris.
Just a question, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all of this is going to come at a price. Electric equipment is nowhere near the price of gas. Have we started ramping up budgets in anticipation of change? And that's probably more to Darren and Scott and Alma.
No, we have not. The current replacement policy that we have is based on, you know, the cost of the vehicles that we currently have. So we would definitely need to look at, you know, what the surcharge is on a electric vehicle. You know, but obviously in the operational budget, we'll be able to look at what the cost savings would be from the gas to the electric as well. But no, we have not.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the language says that we're researching feasibility, and that's the kind of thing that goes into there. I mean, when you look at it, it's not just the cost of the fuel that you save, but it's the, you know, there's cost of charging, there's a savings in fuel, there's a savings in service, there's, you know, it's a bigger picture. But I think you know, to sort of move this forward, then those conversations start to happen. Okay, I'm going to call the question on the, oh no, Dirk, sorry.
Just two things. One, it's a kind of side note, but there is a really nice electric garbage truck made by a company in Quebec. I don't know if it would work here, throwing it out there, but sort of to Stu's point, some things like this are largely symbolic, especially if we're already looking at this with our procurement. But to me, it's as symbolic to do it as it is symbolic to not do something like this. So I feel like it's important to do this, to make it etched in stone, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. And I did notice in the Alpine contract, they said that they had some hybrid vehicles. Brian, you can ask if they have any hybrid vehicles coming to the Kootenays. Stuart.
Yeah, I just don't want to be absolutist about this. I mean, I think it makes, at some point, these things do make sense. I mean, I certainly make these decisions. I'm prepared to pay a premium for, the feeling good about saving the planet and breathing in less fumes, and there's many real advantages to these things, but it has to be worth the cost. I mean, you can buy some boutique one-off electric truck right now for 4 or 5 times the cost of a regular truck, and I mean, that doesn't mean we have to go and buy it.
No.
It has to be considered over the lifestyle, and it has to be practical, and has to be make sense to the people in this community. They don't want us to be going out there and spending exorbitant amounts of money on symbolic gestures.
No.
It still has to make sense.
The language says research feasibility, and that's where that practicality part comes in too. Janice.
I was just going to say, and this is actually from the covenant that we previously discussed, but when we look at reducing our greenhouse gases, when we look at greening the fleet, et cetera, I think one of the most important things, and I talked to Montana about this too, is that we have to do it in a way that is just and inclusive for all of our society. It's easy when we have the funds to be able to say, I would pay a premium to have this particular thing, but we have to remember that we're speaking on behalf of our whole society. And so it has to make sense for that whole society to say, yes, that will be better for us in the long run or in the short term or whatever it is. So these are great. I mean, these are really important things for our future, and they're great. They have great intentions, but we do have to be just, fair, and inclusive in our decisions about how we do this.
Yep, and that's why it says research the feasibility. That all goes into that. And I think that's a really good point. Okay, I'd like to call a question on this one. All in favor? And no one opposed. Okay, so the second one, Dirk?
The council directs staff to work with other regional 100% renewable communities to identify upcoming local government fleet replacement needs for the next 5 years. And further, council directs staff to work with other 100% renewable partners to compile a list of potential electric or other alternative green fuel vehicles that could be obtained at a discounted price through a negotiated multi-vehicle contract. And further, council directs staff to work with other 100% renewable partners to include other tools that could be replaced with electric or other alternative green fuels versus gas powered, and consider a similar bulk purchase negotiation with suppliers such as shop tools, snow blowers, lawnmowers, leaf blowers, weed whackers, etc.
And this one actually did come up, and actually I can't recall whether Dirk was at the meeting, but this did come up with the other renewable partners last fall, and there was a lot of enthusiasm for moving it forward, but it didn't actually, nothing actually happened. So I figured, well, Roslyn could be the first to do it, and then the rest of them will jump on. It's not that they didn't like the idea, so I think there's a lot of interest, and some of the people that were at those meetings were actually staff of those other 100% renewable communities. So, okay, so do we have a seconder for that one? Janice seconds it. All right, any discussion there? And again, just caveat to all, this is as feasible as it happens, that kind of thing. We're not directing staff to drop everything and run out and start working with these other communities, but it's just, looking at a equipment replacement plan. Okay, any comments, questions? Dirk?
Just what did I replaced a brush cutter with a lithium ion one. It's awesome. I don't have to wear hearing protection. It works as good or better. It's cleaner, and supposedly it'll save me money in the long run.
Can you talk to your neighbors while you're using it?
Yeah, actually it was, my neighbor was using it, and I couldn't hear it over top of the electric remote control car. It was halfway in between us. It was awesome.
That's great. Okay, I'm going to call the question on this. All in favor? Unless there's any other comments. Let's see any other comments. Okay, good. And the last one. Andy, do you want to do the last one?
Sure. Number 3, direct staff to review and modify our fleet purchase strategy and recommend that any vehicle that requires a replacement be an EV, hybrid model, or other green alternative fuel. No green alternative is available, and the replacement is necessary. Purchased used rather than new in anticipation that we replaced with an EV hybrid or green alternative fuel model in the near future. And see, seconder?
Dirk seconds, okay. Okay, so any comments on this? Start with Andy, go with Dirk, and then we'll move around.
Again, the idea with that was just not to commit ourselves for the long term with a gas guzzling vehicle. And I think the idea to potentially purchase a used one so that a year or two down the road, we're in a position to look at a better, greener alternative, I think is what we're trying to do here.
Now, you just put a word in there that wasn't in the motion that maybe should be, is that potentially purchase used. Because I think Janice brought up a point in the email that, well, hold on, maybe a used one isn't good value. So it would be potentially, if there's good value used, like my awesome Subaru, Janice, that could be the kind of thing you buy. But if they're all just dog meat out there, you wouldn't want to do it. So you want to add that in, the purchase fleet.
Sure.
Purchase?
Yep.
Okay.
Happy to do that.
Okay, Dirk?
This makes sense to me. I mean, 2/3 of my fleet vehicles have been used purchases, and they're my two favorite ones to drive. They're awesome. So I think, it's not a deal breaker if you're careful about doing it.
Okay, I'm going to go, let's see, I think Stu had his hand up, but staff has their hand up too. So Stu, comment, and then we'll go to staff.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't want it to be prescriptive. I mean, I think it can make sense in any circumstance to consider used, but depending on what you're buying, and whether the warranty makes sense, or what you're getting technology that's not available in the older vehicles. I mean, there's lots and lots of things to consider. I wouldn't want to tie staff's hands into buying some old junker when a newer vehicle makes more sense.
That's right. Well, that's why we added potentially, because that was missed in the original. Brian or whomever in staff.
Yeah, so we're just gonna make the same point that Councillor Spooner made, is that all those decisions come into play every day. We look at things, what we do, and in regards to our asset management investment plan, we actually have specific language in there that we look at average annual life cycle cost analysis. And even when we do RFPs, we look at saying that even though it's the lowest price may not necessarily be the preferred option based on the fact of servicing records, maintenance activities, availability for parts and supplies, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, everything that's on this piece of paper, to be honest with you, staff is already well advancing, but it's great to put it on a formal document.
Good. We'll put it on a formal document, and then we'll give it out to all the other 100% renewable communities who maybe aren't as advanced as we are. Okay, anything else? Anything else on this? I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay. Okay, so Dirk, did you have anything else on your members report? You're muted.
Nope, I got to the end.
Okay, good work. Andy. You're muted.
Attended edited advocacy, utilities, East End services, and a couple of board meetings. Putting a report together now to circulate with council on those. Nothing earth-shattering other than obviously the EOC notifications that I'm sure council is getting from the regional district. Unfortunately, the weather event on the weekend has caused some major problems again in the Boundary area. And I understand not just Boundary, but Central Kootenai's been hard hit too. A number of communities and a lot of small rural areas a lot of people are unfortunately either out of their homes now or potentially out of their homes. So our thoughts are with those folks, and hopefully this dry weather now that's coming will drop river levels and reduce the risk. I also want to say thank you to the Public Works Department for after this storm that we did have over the weekend. Lots of activity around the community, and I know down in our neighborhood here that they dealt with some major road erosion, and I understand that there was some flooding of properties around the community as well that were dealt with. So again, wanted to say thank you again to our Public Works staff for being on top of that stuff.
Yeah, great. And we look forward to your report of your meetings. Those are great.
Yep.
Okay, so let's see, I'm the only one that haven't done members reports. So Trail and District Chamber would like a liaison from Roslyn Council. If we don't have a volunteer right now, I think it could wait until after our by-election, because then we'll be reallocating committee work again. The only thing is that this is an important time because of COVID, recovery. So I might sit in on some of those meetings unless there's somebody that steps forward who is interested at this point. Feel free to raise your hand.
Kathy, I'll do that with you.
Yes, good. Okay. All right. Thanks, Chris. Because I did think you'd be ideal since you have businesses in town. You have a good perspective, which was one of the things I did was join the business roundtable thing. And Chris was one of the presenters talking about how he's handling his businesses up in Roslyn and being sort of an example to others. And I thought that was quite a good session. So thanks for that, Chris. I think along with Janice did the Lidstone webinar, and Dawn was sharing sort of practical legal issues for local government that we need to consider as we go into reopening and addressed assistance to business rules, which was good. And, the authority that local governments have over adopting policies, enforcing bylaws, and, and that, which of course we don't have a whole lot of control actually, but that's okay. It was on another one of the Minister Robinson calls with issues with, there's 30 communities on those calls. And basically the topic was how to open up safely. That's where everybody's moving to right now. We also had an RMI mayors with CAOs this time. So it wasn't just our Sunday mayors meeting, but we had CAOs there. And there are obviously the concerns with the uncertainty of when international borders will open and domestic travel. There's sort of this push and pull about, yes, we need the visitors come back. No, we don't want them to come back because they might be bringing, the virus with them. So that's really an interesting dilemma for, tourist communities. The Highway 3 Mayors and Chairs meeting, we meet twice a year to basically identify priorities that we then take to Minister of Transportation and also to the Minister of Transportation at UBCM and the Premier. And so this meeting is the one to sort of identify the priorities. Then we have another one right before UBCM, and this will all be done by Zoom this year. So that'll be interesting. And it's really good of the priorities that were identified for last year. MOT is actually working on several of them. They've moved them into the planning stage, which is good. There's some bridges, and particularly stuff in East Kootenay right now that's going on there. But one of the things that I think is really good is that a sort of a baseline request to MOTI is that whenever they're redoing roads, they try and do additional work so the shoulder is widened and made better for bicyclists. And that's kind of they have a very active transportation plan for the province, and so they've incorporated that. The other thing that we're going to be asking for this time is that they also look at wildlife corridors, because we had a really great presentation from a Parks Canada guy at this meeting, and some of the things they're doing in the East Kootenay. When they're redoing bridges, they're just, for a very small amount of additional money, they can make a safe access under, like instead of just having the creek go under the bridge, they have sort of a little bridging area so animals can also cross. And they've got a lot of stats that say that this has really saved a lot of vehicle-animal collisions. So we've made a request into MOTI for our part of the West Kootenays over to see where the hot spots are here, and that'll probably go into being one of the top priorities of other road work that's happening. The MCON update that Chris and Janice were on, I think one of the things in addition to what they were talking about with the energy stuff is also that the tendering is probably going to be pushed back, more likely August rather than July, which also could then have impact on when the project would start. So there's other options to be looked at there, including some of the things that have been talked about with this group. The design and construction consulting group did answer the questions that council brought forward, but they had some refinement they were going to do, so we haven't distributed it to everyone. We haven't seen it back yet. Once we do, we'll distribute it to everyone, and it'll be out to the public too, because there's great information in there that answers some of those questions. Let's see. The Masks for All Roslyn project is doing very well. That's where volunteer seamstresses in the community are stitching masks, and we've now distributed over 900 in the community, which is great. And we've had donations from Tech, from the Rosin Fine Wine and Liquor Store, Rotary, Eagles, and individuals, and that's where the money for the supplies come to, which is good. Demand is increasing, which is amazing. They go through 1 million masks. I take them up and drop them off at the drugstore and drop them up at Ferraro's. They go through them like crazy, but honestly, I hardly ever see anybody wearing them in town, so I don't know where they're going, but anyway, it seems like more people are interested in having masks as we get opened up more to the public. Now, one of the last things, we had a complaint from a citizen about artwork that's up on the Kootenai-Columbia Trail, and then also complaint from other citizens about some sort of illegal trail work being done over on near Drake's, which has impacted some flora and fauna over there. So it's brought up this point that we're going to have a discussion. We need a discussion on the rules and responsibilities of the city on those trails that kind of surround our community. And so I know we're going to have some staff members and Stu and myself, start to have an initial conversation about that shortly. We haven't set the date yet, but it's on our to-do list, and that'll happen shortly. And that is it. So if we have nothing else, we'll take a motion to adjourn. I think Janice makes it. Okay. Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.